Welcome to this in-depth discussion. Today's content is provided by the Buddha's Light International Association in Australia. Yes, we are going to examine a record of a profound dialogue between the master and the disciple. Indeed, this record is quite interesting. It seems to touch upon topics like the cycle of karma and rebirth, how to rely on the Buddha's Dharma, our perception of ourselves, and how spiritual practice can transform life. Correct, the scope is broad yet very central. Well then, let's start sorting this out properly. I feel reading this dialogue is truly like a spiritual journey. How so? It begins with the confusion or fear that many people, perhaps including you, might have, the fear of reincarnation. Yes, the disciple initially feared falling into the animal realm, worried about having to repay karmic debts continuously. That fear seems quite common. Thinking about karma and cause and effect makes it feel inescapable, a very real feeling. However, the master's response, I think, hits the nail on the head. What did he say? He first pointed out the concept of the equality of karma, saying that it's not just us who are afraid. The beings we eat also have very complex causal relationships with us. He even directly asked the disciple, don't you think about how much you've eaten? Wow, that sentence is very direct. Yes, it immediately highlights the reciprocity, that it's not one-sided. But the disciple then asked, can we rely on external power then? For example, relying on the vow power of the precious victory Buddha, to at least temporarily escape the evil realms, like hell, hungry ghosts, and animals. This question brings up the first very important point in the dialogue. What point? The contrast between external reliance and internal transformation. Which one is the key? The master made it very clear. Promises from Buddhas like precious victory Buddha, such as guaranteeing rebirth in heaven in the next life, come with a prerequisite. What's the prerequisite? The prerequisite is that you yourself must not destroy, in the master's words, must not destroy these good states yourself by actively creating bad karma. If your own actions choose a bad direction, even the Buddha can only respect your choice. Respect your choice? Yes. Then the master used that very famous example, Ju Baji. Yes, Marshal Tianpan. He was originally a high-ranking celestial being. But what happened? Because of his indecent behavior in heaven, he developed greed and pursued a celestial maiden. His behavior became very coarse, and in the end, he still failed. Doesn't this just illustrate that even if you relied on external power to ascend, if your own habits, those patterns of greed, anger, and coarseness are not changed, you still won't be able to stay there. Yes, you will still fall because of your own actions. Sure, it's not that everything is fine once you reach heaven, far from it. The master also emphasized that the standards in the celestial realm are actually very high. How high? They require precision and subtlety, meaning the 10 good deeds, body, speech, and mind must all be covered. Exactly, no killing, no stealing, no sexual misconduct, no lying, no divisive speech, no harsh speech, no idle chatter, and in terms of thought, no greed, anger, or delusion. These requirements are actually very detailed. People with coarse behavior, even if they luckily ascend, if their fundamental nature hasn't changed, they will naturally return to the coarse realms corresponding to their habits. The master used a rather shocking analogy here. Which one? He said if you don't cultivate your habits and change them, and are put to heaven by the Buddha's power, it's like a group of cockroaches. Yes, a group of cockroaches going to heaven. Wow, this analogy, although harsh, is very awakening. Yes, it awakens us to the fact that internal transformation is fundamental. So you see the master's line of thinking. Instead of worrying about falling and seeking external protection, it's better to change the mindset. Change it to what kind of mindset? To learn from the great bodhisattvas to willingly and compassionately go north because you were kicked out for making a mistake. But in order to help, voluntarily go to places that need help. A proactive choice? Yes, the key word is cultivation. Continuous self-cultivation to elevate the internal, transforming those bad habits. So the focus of this first part is that relying on the outside alone is not enough. The foundation is still self-cultivation and self-improvement. Correct. This cultivation naturally leads to the next question. If we want to transform habits, then we have to ask, who is this I? Whose habits are these? Yes, The master then discussed our fundamental misconception about the self. He quoted from the Sutra of the Perfect Enlightenment, Yuan-Ju-Jing, mistaking the four great elements for the self-body, and the shadows arising from the six sense objects for the self-mind. This sentence is very important. This sentence sounds a bit abstract. Can you break it down for us? Okay, this sentence is a core teaching in Buddhism regarding anatta, no self. The four great elements Mahabuddha are earth, water, fire, and air. The elements that constitute this body of ours. Our physical body. Yes, bones and muscles are the earth element. Blood and body fluids are the water element. Body heat is the fire element. Breathing and movement are the air element. We usually feel this body is me. It's very intuitive. What about the shadows arising from the six sense objects? This refers to our mental activities. Our six sense organs, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind come into contact with the six sense objects form. Sound, smell, taste, touch, and phenomena, these six dusts. The external world. Yes, contacting them generates many feelings, thoughts, intentions, will, and perceptions. The master says these things are like shadows. Shadows projected onto the mind by external conditions, constantly changing, arising and ceasing, impermanent. We then mistake these feelings and thoughts for my mind. Sure, the me that we feel most real, this body. These thoughts are all misidentifications. Yes, you've grasped the key point. The master says it is because of this misidentification that we become trapped by the demon families. Does Mogia mean actual demons? The Mo here mainly refers not to external beings, but more to internal obstacles, internal ones. Like the demon of afflictions, which are greed, anger, delusion, pride, doubt, etc., and the five skandha demons, which are the attachment to the combination of our body and mind, form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. Because we cling tightly to this body and don't let go, identifying with these thoughts as me. It's like locking ourselves in the demon's house, being controlled by them. This explanation is quite interesting. If the body and thoughts are not the true self, then what is? The master seems to use light as a metaphor. Yes, this metaphor of light is wonderful. It points to our innate pure awareness or Buddha nature that transcends the body and mind. Innate awareness is like light, imagine. Is light formless? Can it not be touched or harmed? If you abide in this awareness, which is like light, and do not identify with this body or these thoughts as me, then external attacks and internal afflictions, the Mo, cannot touch your core, cannot touch the core. Yes, the body might feel pain, and thoughts might run wild, but that awareness, like light, will not be harmed in itself. It sounds ideal. But the disciple immediately asked a very practical question. What question? I seem to understand the principle. But when I truly feel fear, the body's sensations are so intense, and thoughts keep popping up. Won't I revert then? Won't I identify again? Then the demons will have a chance? Correct. This is the difficulty in practice. But the master's next response is a bit counterintuitive. How so? He said that these attacks or tests from the Mo can actually aid your achievement. Oh, being attacked can help you achieve. Yes, the master explained. Think about it. When you feel very scared or threatened, what do? You get very tense. You try to grasp onto something to protect yourself. Right, in practice, if you understand the principle of light, in a crisis, you will strive harder to hold onto that state of light, not identifying with the body or thoughts, because you fear being harmed. Exactly, you will desperately remind yourself, this is not me, I am light. This way, the Mo has no power over that light. Sure, adversity forces you to work harder to maintain right mindfulness. This is an understandable interpretation. But what the master said next, I think, is even more important. What? When is the real danger? It's not when external winds and rains are strong, but when it is calm and peaceful. When things are fine, it's actually dangerous. How is that? Because when there is no pressure, we tend to relax. Unconsciously, we start enjoying the body's sensations again, identifying with those thoughts and emotions, thinking this is good. The master calls this nourishing the demon. Nourishing the demon? Yes, we think we are taking care of ourselves, But we are actually using comfort and ease to nourish the illusory self. That mold that binds us, making it fatter and harder to deal with. Wow, this concept of nourishing the demon really makes one pause and think. We all think pursuing comfort is normal, but it might be making the problem bigger. Yes, so if we can't nourish the demon, but must nourish the Buddha, nourish the internal awareness, then what is the concrete way to do it? The master then mentioned causes and conditions and offerings. Yes, here, the discussion moves from view to practical methods. The master emphasized one sentence: Dharma does not arise in isolation, it depends on conditions to arise. This means the merit and wisdom of the Buddha's Dharma do not come out of nowhere. The cooperation of causes and conditions is necessary. If you want to connect with the Buddha's Dharma and receive its benefits, you must first have the condition. This condition is a bit abstract. Like what? It's like when you want to make a phone call. You must dial the correct number. To watch TV, you must tune into the right channel. The condition is that connection, the connection. And how do we establish this connection? The master seems to specifically talk about offerings. Yes, the master said that making offerings to Buddhas and Bodhisattvas is one of the best ways to establish and deepen this good condition. He even cited the Bodhisattvas in the Sutra of Amitabha, who go to the 10 directions every day to make offerings to Buddhas. Yes, they do. Why the Bodhisattvas who are already so accomplished still need to make offerings? It seems different from our idea of making offerings to seek wealth or health. Yes, the level is different. The master explained that the core purpose of making offerings in practice is to cultivate our joy and affinity for the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Joy and affinity. Think about it. For a person or a thing you feel joy and a desire to be close to, you will naturally want to learn, understand, and approach it. Won't you? Yes. Because the offering creates this joy and connection. That is the condition. Naturally, there will be the motivation to study and practice. This is the beginning of the course. I understand. If there is no such condition or no joy, no matter how good the Dharma is, perhaps you won't listen to it, or even find these principles annoying, feeling they interfere with your eating, drinking, and fun, and thus reject it. Worse still, it might even breed arrogance. The master also mentioned this. What analogy did he use? He used a high mound of self-pride cannot hold the water of merit. High mound of self-pride. Arrogance is like a high mountain. The water of merit and Dharma is like water. Water cannot flow up if the mind is too high. Even if the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas want to bless you, you cannot receive it. So, establishing the condition, cultivating joy, and having a humble mind is the first, very important, foundational step. Based on this, the sequence of practice, would it be to first cultivate the condition through methods like making offerings, establishing the connection and generating joy, and then, when the mind is calmer and more willing to learn, to proceed to cultivate the cause. Like the methods of the 10 directions of dedication the master mentioned later, show that one can truly abide in the Dharma. Yes, you summarized it well. It is this sequence. The master also said why our minds are restless and always drawn to external pleasures and the more. It's because our connection with the Buddha's Dharma is not deep enough. So we must first put effort into establishing the connection, allowing the mind to naturally feel joy and stability, feeling that the Buddha's family is wonderful. And only then can we speak of practicing deeper Dharma, truly settling down. After understanding cause and condition, the master clarified another term, merit. Yes, 功德 merit. We often hear it, but don't always understand it. He said NG is the process, and De is the result. Isn't that different from what we think? We might think just listening to principles brings merit. Absolutely different. This is another very important reminder from the master. He used an analogy. What analogy? He said if a person studies for 10 years on how to plant a tree, mastering the theory inside out, but never personally digs the soil, shows the seed, or waters it, do you think they can harvest fruit? Impossible, right? So merit is not just about knowing. G or NG effort process means you must personally do it. The process of putting in effort, for example, reciting the Buddha's name, meditating, practicing, these are all cultivating. The virtue result is the quality, ability, or good fruit obtained through this. like attaining a pure mind through reciting the Buddha's name, or upright conduct through upholding precepts. Exactly Ng is the cause, Ge is the result. Only when the two are combined is it Ji, Ge, merit. Without the preceding Wu, there is no subsequent Ji. This is much clearer now. And the Master also reminded us that the direction of the effort matters greatly. Direction. We might also be accumulating merit in the wrong direction. For example, using our minds every day to calculate, get angry, or indulge greed. This is also putting in effort. Then the obtain this. The Master says it's the merit of self-injury. The result is suffering. Whatever you nourish, you obtain that kind of merit. This brings us back to the choice between nourishing the Buddha or nourishing the demon. Yes, this is the choice of direction in practice. Okay, since we know that merit requires personal effort, and the direction must be correct, next, the Master quoted the Avatamsaka Sutra, stating that the purpose of the Buddha's teaching has many benefits, such as receiving the protection of the Buddhas, abiding in the Dharma family, increasing transcendent merits, attaining the brightness of Dharani, and so on. Yes, many. The Master said all these can be achieved through the 10 directions of dedication. These 10 directions of dedication sounds very powerful. Indeed, according to the Master's introduction, the 10 directions of dedication is a very important and systematic method of practice, like a high-level blueprint for spiritual cultivation. A spiritual blueprint. It can help us achieve those goals, strengthen the connection with Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, receive the Buddha's protection and abide peacefully on the right path, abiding in the Dharma family, accumulating merit for liberation, and increasing transcendent merits. Among these, he particularly mentioned attaining the brightness of Dharani. The term Dharani sounds so powerful. The Master said that hearing and retaining Dharani allows for perfect recall, not forgetting what is seen or heard. Is that true? Isn't that a superpower? Dharani means total retention or collection, retaining all Dharma and holding infinite meaning. It is an ability to remember and comprehend vast amounts of the Buddha's teachings or knowledge without loss of memory. Dharani is indeed a super strong capacity for memory and comprehension, where once you hear or see something, it is etched into your mind and never forgotten. Wouldn't that make the learning efficiency skyrocket? Yes, it would. The Master said this is a foundation that practitioners should master first, allowing for an effective exponential increase, where one day is equivalent to 1 kalpa yin of others' practice. That sounds too exaggerated. It's an exaggeration to describe the difference in efficiency. Think about it. If you understand and remember the Dharma just by hearing it once, the speed will naturally be much faster. That's true. So the key question arises, how does one obtain this Smrti Dharani retaining power? Is it also through the 10 directions of dedication? According to the Master's explanation, the text of the 10 directions of dedication itself includes methods for establishing various Dharanis. So, how specifically does one do it? The Master gave a principle and an analogy. He said to treat it like caring for a plant. Caring for a plant? Yes, you need to fertilize and water it. Fertilizer and water are the merit you cultivate in your practice. Then you must dedicate this merit towards the goal of achieving Dharani. Merit dedication. You also need sunlight, which is using your pure, bright mind light to observe and contemplate that state. Mind, like contemplation. Finally, you need temperature, which is the passion and joy in your practice. It cannot be ice cold. So, it is merit dedication for water and fertilizer. Mind like contemplation for sunlight, and passion, temperature for continuation. Precisely this principle, it must be nurtured with the mind. But the Master gave a final reminder. What reminder? These abilities are not yours forever once you obtain them. If you later relax, become lax, and return to nourishing the demon, those abilities will also regress and disappear. So you have to maintain it continuously. Yes, practice is continuous. Understood, from the initial breaking of the misconception about the self, to learning to establish condition and joy through offerings, then understanding that merit requires personal effort, and finally, cultivating merit and astonishing abilities like Dharani through the 10 directions of dedication. This path seems increasingly clear. It is indeed a step-by-step progression. I feel I have gained a lot from this discussion. I believe you who are listening have as well. We started with the fear of reincarnation, followed the master's reasoning, understood that the self we cling to might just be an illusion. Yes, we also learned that relying solely on external power might not be enough. The foundation is still self-cultivation, and that establishing the condition and cultivating joy is very important. It's the foundation. Then, merit is obtained by actually cultivating effort. Correct. Finally, we learned about profound methods like the 10 directions of dedication that can accelerate transformation, leading to Dharani. In summary, the master continuously emphasizes several key points. The view must change. Do not regard the 4 elements and 6 dusts as self. In action, one must practice, making offerings and cultivating the 10 directions of dedication. The goal is to enhance abilities, attain liberation, gain the Dharani, and abide in the Dharma family. External help is important, but ultimately, it depends on whether one is willing to continuously strive, and whether one's view is correct. So, what is left for all of us to ponder after this discussion is perhaps this. In our daily lives, what are we constantly nourishing? Are we, unknowingly, using our thoughts, speech, and actions to nurture those habits that cause us trouble and bind us that more? Or can we make a more conscious choice to cultivate, to approach, and to nourish that innate potential for pure light, compassion, wisdom, our Buddha nature? This choice might just be our daily homework. Yes, to be aware, to choose, and to practice in every present moment.